we started hearing whispers on trail hikers were dropping like flies. Turned out the suspect was norovirus. Now, no one knew exactly where it was coming from, but we all knew one thing. If you got it, you were going to be out of commission for a while. But nobody knew where it was coming from. Was it coming from the water? Was it coming from trail magic places where people were touching the same jugs and food? We had no idea, but literally all of us were absolutely terrified. If you are hiking for months on end, injuries, illness, and exhaustion, they're inevitable unless you know how to stay ahead of them. So today we're talking about how to keep yourself strong, healthy, and moving forward so you don't end up sidelined like so many hikers did this last year. Hey y'all, I'm Jeffrey, and welcome back to Trail Boss, a semi-helpful guide to conquering your backpacking fears. This 9-part series is here to help you avoid the biggest mistakes that take hikers off trail and make sure that you stay out there doing what you love to do. Now, trail health is something that a lot of hikers don't really think about until it's too late, whether it be like a twisted ankle, a bad case of dehydration, a stomach bug you picked up from some questionable trail magic, and just like that, you're stuck in town for days watching everyone else hike on without you. Now, if you want to skip the trial and error phase and actually get right from the start, grab my free ebook. Oh my God. If you want to skip the trial and error phase and actually get it from the start, grab my free ebook, Trail Boss, a semi-helpful guide to conquering your outdoor fears. It's packed with, practical no BS tips to help you prevent injuries, avoid bad water, handle emergencies, do it all the right way. So feel free to click the link up in the corner or the link in the description below. And if you just want to hike with me and learn all these skills in real time, I host group travel trips all over the world. We go on all sorts of adventures. So check them out. Okay, let's start with what is most likely to actually take you off of trail. First and foremost, overuse injuries. Shin splints, IT band syndrome, tendinitis, all comes from doing too much too fast. And you can do a thru-hike without training. You absolutely can. But the big caveat, and I wouldn't recommend that, but if you do need to do it, you should not cancel your thru-hike. You should still do it, but you do need to understand that you are going to be training on trail. You are going to have to be gentle with your body, and you are going to have to be very cognizant of avoiding injury, because a good portion of injuries will take you off trail for the rest of the season. So overuse injuries are a huge reason that hikers don't get to finish their thru-hike. So if you are adamant about finishing, we talked about these in the social, the video where we talked about social aspects. If you are someone who is going to be devastated by not finishing, overuse injuries should be top of mind every second of every day, because that and money are the most likely things to take you off the trail. Next are blisters. They're every hiker's rite of passage. I had exceptional luck. I had my shoes, my sock, my entire situation super narrowed down. So I had pretty minimal issues, but hikers are inevitably going to get blisters. Sprained ankles, those can be minor or they can be huge. They can be something that maybe doesn't end your hike, but is causing you pain the entire time. So keeping mindful of ankle health and foot health is really important. Falls and scrapes, trekking poles help, but sometimes gravity is just going to win and there's no avoiding it. I have a huge scar on the inside of my calf. I don't know what happened, but something really got into it and I just have a huge scar. I had a little bout of, it's fading, but I had some poison oak on the trail, and you can see there's still the color is different. I still have a scar. And then also back and hip pain. For me, back pain was a huge issue. I had a huge back issue. We're going to get into it. But back and hip pain can be, especially if you're already it's already something you have a proclivity towards, you know that you have back issues, that's something to be very, very, very conscious of. I experienced a resurgence of my back issue at South Lake Tahoe. It was a masterclass in what happens when you push too hard and don't listen to your body. I'd been racking up really big mile days, ignoring the warning signs. It's a back issue I've dealt with most of my life. I know that it's there. I know how it works. I'm ready for it, but I still was ignoring. I wasn't completely ignoring the warning signs, but I should have done more. And then one morning, as I was getting back on trail after a nice little 00, I bent over to tie my shoe and hello. Hey, if you are sitting there thinking, oh, I want to travel more, I want to go on more adventures, come with me. I host trips around the world. We've been hiking in Patagonia. We went looking for the Northern Lights in Iceland, trekking in Nepal, camping in Banff, Canada, in the Canadian Rockies. We do it all, and we have a real good time. Everyone's welcome, and all the details for any current trips, just click that little bubble up in the top corner, or go to my website, jjb.life/travel. And we almost always make at least one group cringy TikTok. So come hang out with us. We're a real good time. I bent over to tie my shoe, and as we were getting back on trail, and boom, like my back just like everything seized up and cramped, and I could barely move. And instead of hiking, I spent 10 plus days off trail, basically lying on the floor of a cheap hotel, eating regret flavored Pop-Tarts. The lesson learned, I don't know. Listen to your body before it forces you to. Okay, so how do you actually avoid injury? So here's a few tips. First of all, especially if you haven't trained, start slow and build up your miles. Your body needs time to adjust, and adjust it will. When Mount Whitney was the first day where I was like, what's happening with my body? Everything feels good. I'm not too tired. Like, I feel strong. What's happening? It was so weird. But I'd been hiking. I'd been putting in miles for 2 months, so it made sense. Stretching, or if you have injuries that you know exist, like anything like a physical therapist has given you, just making sure you're taking a few minutes per day, if it's helpful and necessary, to stretch, do those exercises, those kind of things. Anything preventative, do it. Trekking poles are your best friend. Trekking poles are for old people. Trekking poles are for slow people. That's what I thought in my 20s. Not true. Trekking poles, they reduce the impact on your knees, and most importantly, they prevent falls. If you are someone, I've been a trail runner for, I don't know, over a decade now, and love to trail run, ultra marathon runner, but clumsy as hell. I fall all the time. Just stupid trips, like nothing dramatic, just small trips, but they can turn into something very dramatic. And once I started religiously using trekking poles, completely done, completely gone, like totally fine. They've almost always caught me. Not always, but almost always. Next, train with your pack before you hike. Like back problems, how do you pack your pack? Trust me, I didn't. And I knew this rule. I knew this rule 100% before I ever thought about doing a through hike, and I still ignored it, and I regretted it. Test your pack. Train with your pack at its weight. Know what that feels like to have a full day of hiking with that on your back. And then, most importantly, just listen to your body. Like, small aches are going to turn into big problems. So when something is happening with your body, when you notice something feeling different or weird, don't ignore it. It doesn't mean that you need to panic or that you need to freak out, but you shouldn't ignore it. Things are not often going to go away on their own just by ignoring them. A little bit of prevention can go a really, really long way. So don't end up like me. Don't end up in a motel eating regret. Okay, next up is your first aid kit. Sorry, I got cold, so I had to put on a sweatshirt and turn on the heater. First aid kit. So I always joke that you can tell how experienced any backpacker is by their first aid kit. And the reason I say that is because we all pack our fears, right? We all pack for what we're most scared of. And the more experienced you get, the more you realize there's so many things, I would say up to 80-90% of the things in a lot of first aid kits you're not going to need. They're impractical. It doesn't make sense to carry that weight for how unlikely you are to need it and how little of a significance it will have on the situation. Most first aid kits are, well, let me get into what's in my first aid kit. Though my whole point is you do not need a whole EMT bag, but in my opinion, you do need a few essentials. Now, this is super personal to everyone, so this is my advice, but you do you, and you do whatever you need to feel comfortable. But one of the first things that's in my first aid kit that I use more than probably anything else is Leuko tape. It's spelled Leuko tape. I'm pretty sure it's a medical tape. I'm pretty sure that is why it was created, but it is insanely sticky. Hot tip though, if it's cold or even like at a moderate temperature, using body heat to rub it will cause it to adhere really well. So well, in fact, well, I first used Leuko tape for ultra running. It's really popular to use on people's nipples or on your feet for blisters, and that's why backpackers and thru-hikers and hikers use it. But anyway, I had put a couple squares on my nipples to prevent chafing, and I did it every long run. But one day I was at the beach. It was when I lived in California, and I'd been at the beach for hours, and there were plenty of people around. I'd been there without my shirt off, swimming and getting some sun. And as I went to leave, I realized that I had nipple tape on from like 3 days earlier. These awkward little squares over my nipples. So all that to say, I mean, if you use a little body heat and get the Leuko tape adhered, it will stay on your skin through showers, through swimming for days. So that is why it is so popular in this scenario. It's a really great way to deal with blisters, especially hot spots. If you feel a spot on your foot where you feel like a blister is starting to develop, that's a great time to use Leuko tape to protect that. But there's all kinds of scenarios where you use it in a backcountry setting. So Leuko tape, first and foremost. Next, I would suggest ibuprofen. Ibuprofen and an antihistamine. There are things that we're allergic to, and we don't know what they are sometimes until we experience them. And that is very unlikely that you are going to have a life-threatening allergic reaction unless you already know that you have an allergy of that sort. But for someone who isn't expecting it, who it's a surprise for, that can be a game ender, and that's something that needs fast action. So that's an example of, I do think it's worth carrying Benadryl. Always have Benadryl with me. There's nothing I'm allergic to that I know of, but if I do end up in a severe allergic reaction, that's something really small and lightweight that could potentially save my life. So I do think it's worth carrying Benadryl or some sort of antihistamine. And also ibuprofen. The one thing that I will mention is ibuprofen. I'm not a medical expert, so I'm going to be careful what advice I give, but my advice is to do your own research. It can be really dangerous to take ibuprofen and other medications when you are doing endurance sports to the degree that you're getting dehydrated, which is definitely going to happen on most Thru-Hikes. It certainly did on my PCT Thru-Hike. So just be cautious of how you use ibuprofen. The general rule for ultra runners is that you never take ibuprofen during the run. You can take it as soon as you're done, once you're rehydrating and your body's returning to normal. But ultra runners, I mean, the general advice is to not take things during the run because you get so dehydrated. What happens is you get so dehydrated that those medications that are normally safe in a normal body, they get super concentrated and your kidneys can't handle it. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes ultra runners go into kidney failure, and that is sometimes the culprit. So all that to say, if you use medications, just be careful of using them with your increased physical activity because your body is going to react to them differently, and they can be less safe under certain conditions. Okay, I think I've danced around that enough. Next is electrolytes. You're gonna. This is not really. I don't know if this belongs in a first aid kit. You're probably going to be having electrolytes often, if not every day, especially in like a desertous section. But that's something that's in there. I also have either like a Neosporin, like an antiseptic lotion, or honestly, even just like Vaseline, like a petroleum jelly, does the same. But I always have a tiny little bit of that with me because you're always getting nicks and things, and it just helps everything heal faster. And the faster those wounds heal over, the less time there is to get infection. If you want to bring things like Band-Aids, gauze pads, you can. But again, these are things that I don't know if it really makes sense, especially for a short trip, if it really makes sense to have all that stuff with you. It's something only you can say. It's a super personal decision. So I'm not going to tell you not to take it. You have to take what's going to be useful for you. But just know you're probably not going to need most of the things you take, which is the goal. That's the hope of a first aid kit, right? And just know that, like, as you get more experience, you're probably going to naturally pare that down once you realize that there are things you're carrying that you're so unlikely to need, or if you did need them, they wouldn't have enough of an impact to justify carrying it every step of your time in the woods. And then there's things like tweezers, tiny set of tweezers. That's a great thing. Virtually no weight and so useful for so many things. But also a lot of multi-tool knives, like Swiss Army knives, things like that. A lot of those have tweezers in them. So that's something to be mindful of as well. That is, like cooks say, any device that does multiple things, that's brilliant. And the same goes on the trail. If you have things that can serve multiple purposes or do multiple jobs, that's a great candidate for taking it with you on something like this, because it's going to do multiple jobs for the same amount of weight. Possibly. I don't know. Okay, I'm talking in circles. What was I saying? Where are my notes? Where are my notes? Somebody. Okay, next up is Norovirus. So this is the real enemy. Everyone's so scared of so many other things, but honestly, I would say things like Norovirus, even Giardia, I think, is way overhyped. I'm not saying you should be cavalier with your water safety, but there's so much Giardia talk. But Norovirus was much, much more of a concern. So here's the thing. I've kind of already told the story, but we were approaching Mission Creek. That's the section of the PCT we were approaching. And we had been hearing stories of people ahead having Norovirus. And, there's an incubation period. And so the gossip was that they had kind of narrowed it down to this Mission Creek area that I was entering. But nobody knew, there's no way that anyone could know where it was coming from without extensive testing. But the main suspects were, as you approached Palm Springs, which is right before this Mission Creek section, there's a really popular water cache where almost every Thru-Hiker stops. There's water there. It's a really popular spot for trail angels to drop stuff off because it's the underpass under Interstate 10. So a really busy interstate, so it's really easy for people to get there. So anyway, it's a very popular spot. There was suspicion that everyone touching those water jugs and things might be where it was getting spread, or maybe in the water in that next section, in that Mission Creek section. Nobody knew for sure, but we were all super, super paranoid. And the couple nights I had taken a little break there, I was crashing on a random woman's garage floor along with a number of other hikers. She's a trail angel, and that's just what she does. She lives right there next to that overpass. So anyway, that night I was crashing on the floor of this random woman's garage with a group of other hikers, and we were all worried about it. It was all on our minds. Some people were skipping it, but the group consensus was like, we didn't want to skip it, but we also didn't feel super confident doing it by ourselves either. And the thing is, it wasn't just Norovirus. Mission Creek also experienced a hurricane 2 or 3 years prior, which turned out to kind of be a non-event for most of Southern California. It's very rare that a hurricane comes through Southern California, and obviously there was lots of hubbub, and then it was kind of a non-event for most of Southern California. But this is an example of someplace where it was not a non-event. It's desertous. That much water that quickly just caused a lot of the trail to wash out. So that was another reason a lot of people were skipping the section, because there were reports of some really precarious sections of trail with big drop-offs, but like there's no trail, so you're kind of hugging the side of the canyon. So we were all nervous about it, like all of us. Norovirus, and the fact that it wasn't closed, but it was not recommended. So it was this weird gray area where if you wanted to do it, you weren't barred from doing it, but because of liability, recommendation was to skip it. It wasn't officially closed, but people also weren't recommending it. Did we do it anyway? Yes, of course. And was it a disaster? Well, the trail was absolutely obliterated in sections, like totally steep, unstable, dangerous. But we got around all of it, and in the end, um, well, these hikers ended up becoming my family, and I would end up sticking with them, with at least a variety of them for the entire trail. All that to say, nobody knows where the norovirus was coming from. We all seem to have avoided it. So all we did was follow the general recommendations, which is washing your hands, avoiding sharing food or touching other people's food, being extra cautious in like trail towns and hotels and hostels, any place you are where there are multiple people, and then of course treating your water. But norovirus, as I understand it, again, I am not a medical professional, but as I understand it, norovirus is most commonly spread by contact. I think it also, or it sounds, from what I understand, a fecal matter is a really great place for it to start. And the reason it's so pervasive on long distance trails is because large groups of thru hikers pooping in the woods, eating in the woods, doing their best with sanitation, but you can only do so much. We're dirty. We're really dirty, and so just know that that's how it happens. A really hot backpacking tip is to use one hand for bathrooming and to designate another hand for eating. So that does help a bit in that you a lot reduce the potential for contamination. And I know it's gross to talk about, but it's 2025, so we know how easily just flushing the toilet sends fecal matter all over your bathroom. So that's one of the biggest things that you can do to help keep yourself safe and not sick, is keeping yourself clean, being conscious of what you're touching, especially things that are also touching your face, your mouth, things that are going in your body. Just be cautious, because it's not. Well, I'm sure it has killed people before, but while not life threatening, it can definitely end your trip. It can definitely end your Thru-Hike. So anyway, norovirus, don't eat your poop. Okay, next, poisonous plants and my poison oak disaster. So I thought I knew what poison oak looked like, and I still think I do, but I totally walked right through it, apparently. At first, which is, I guess, how it works, nothing. But a day, 2, 3 later, I don't know when it happened, but my arm started looking like something out of a horror movie. There were like blisters that were oozing, and they popped up out of nowhere over like a course of 4 or 5 hours as I was getting over a stomach flu. It was kind of a dark section of the trail, if we're being honest. You can still see a little pigment scar right there. So that was one of the blisters. That was the biggest blister. There were some others up here, but that's the one. I don't think it's a scar. I think it's that I got so much sun damage while I was on my Thru-Hike. I've been home, it's March, so I've been home, 6 months, something like that. So it's had plenty of time, but I think just my skin got so much sun that I think all of this skin is brand new and doesn't have the sun. So I think as my skin pigment returns to normal, as I'm in a normal amount of sun, I think it will go away. I don't think it's a scar, but it's no joke. I guess that's what I'm saying. On the PCT, there's also poodle dog bush, poison ivy, poison oak. On the AT, almost any trail, there are going to be poisonous plants, and we really focus on the poisonous animals for good reason. But those plants can really do a doozy on you as well. So there's something to respect and be aware of. But as long as you do your research in advance and know how to identify them, know where you're most likely to find them, and know how what to do if you do get in contact with some, you're going to be fine. They're definitely not, again, not life-threatening, but definitely a huge annoyance, and maybe a Thru-Hike changer. All right, so it turns out the scariest things on trail are not bears or serial killers. It's things like dehydration and bad water taking a bad step or brushing against some poisonous poodle dog bush. But as long as you know what you're looking out for, as long as you're prepared, you're gonna be just fine. If you're loving this series and you want more of this no BS backpacking advice, check out the full Trail Boss playlist. It's an entire series. I polled my entire audience to ask them what if something was keeping them from backpacking or exploring the outdoors, what were the top things? And we are slowly making our way through that list. So don't forget to grab the ebook that accompanies it, Trail Boss, a semi-helpful guide to conquering your outdoor fears. It involves or includes everything in this video as well as the other videos, and then a bunch of extra tips and tricks as well. And if you just want to learn this stuff the right way, you just hike with me, check out my group trips. We travel all over the place. We've gone to Patagonia, Nepal. We're going to Banff in September. It's almost full, but there's a few spots left. And if you don't get a spot on the current trip, there's always going to be more. So just follow, stay tuned, and I'm always announcing new trips. So like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and we're going to see you in the next video where we're going to tackle and tackle wildlife fears like bears, snakes, and other critters that won't kill you. Probably. Until then, happy trails, y'all. Want to watch another video? Click here. Want to learn more about my upcoming trips? Click here. Want to subscribe and like all my videos and turn those bell notifications on?